Just wanted to kind of bring to attention, I received a notice for, the resuming of the bands playing on Strawberry Street, the first end of the block toward Mason. And I just wanted to express concern and hope that we could close off the entire block, because I've noticed when we have people pulling into Strawberry Street, and then, like tourists that don't know it's going to be closed, and then when they back up into Randolph, it's kind of an accident hazard. So my hope is, as a business owner on Strawberry Street, that we could close off the entire block, except for obviously to residents who park there, that live in that area. So that was my hope today, so I just wanted to leave you with that.
Close it off at Randolph and Strawberry?
So Randolph, yeah, so Mason and Randolph, so it would be closed off the entire block, so people aren't going, oh, and then, causing an accident on Randolph.
Yeah, good idea.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Nobody else has signed up, but I do have an email to be read.
And we note that Councilman Fulmer has arrived at 6:33.
Welcome, Councilman Palmer. You're right, it is 6:33. I'll second that.
Okay, this email is from Sam Jones at 538 Monroe Avenue. Dear Town Council, I am Sam Jones, and my wife and I live at 538 Monroe Avenue. Thank you for your work to clarify issues regarding accessory dwelling units in town. In reviewing the proposed language, it does not appear to adequately address the personal use of accessory dwelling units by the property owner. To address this issue, I suggest the following language be added at the end of the proposal. Nothing in this ordinance shall prevent or restrict the by right use of an accessory dwelling unit by the homeowner to house family members or family guests at the homeowner's discretion and with no time requirements. Thank you for considering this additional language.
Is that it? Thank you. Next item is the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the agenda, the format, approval of minutes, and approval of the March 31st, 2022 financial report. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Just before you vote, I want to apologize again for the lateness of the financial report. There were some issues within the finance department which we've worked out, and it will not be this late again next month. You were just given it today. If you don't feel that you've had adequate time to review it, please feel free to pull it and put it on the agenda next time. So again, I apologize for it being late.
Anybody have any issues?
No.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. New business. First item, A, zoning text amendment.
I'll let
Yes, Ms. Nunez.
I'll let the zoning administrator take these three.
I'll try from back here, I'll try and speak loudly, if that might work.
I don't think they'll be able to hear you on this. I'm sorry.
As we say, those that are not in the room have difficulty hearing you if you're not in front of a microphone, no matter how loud your voice is.
Okay. So we did hold our joint public hearing at the Planning Commission meeting on May 2nd. We had one written comment from Sam Jones. He made similar comments as you heard this evening as to what was read into the record. In that report, we also provided an expanded explanation as to how some of the decisions were reached by the Planning Commission in our report, because that had been asked by you at the last meeting. You asked for some clarification how we reached some of our decisions. So we did include that in the staff report. I would be happy to elaborate on any of them if you wish me to. The public hearing was closed, and the Planning Commission did have a vote to recommend favorable.
For a second,
Yes.
Smitty sent a text that said sound is not on.
I just turned it on.
At the very, very beginning, it wasn't on.
Yeah, it wasn't on at the beginning. I apologize.
I didn't know if I was the only one responsible for sharing it. So again, the Planning Commission, through Commissioner Grossman, motioned to favorably recommend adoption of ZTA 2022-01 to amend Section 4.2J and Section 2.9, the definitions of the Cape Charles zoning ordinance for accessory dwellings. to the Town Council, was seconded by Commissioner Buda, and the motion was carried by a vote of 6 ayes and 1 nay, and the nay was from Commissioner D'Amico. And again, of the document we're referencing, that is the zoning text amendment, it has the cross-throughs, the red lettering. Those are all the proposed changes that we are asking for your consideration of this evening. So I'm happy to go through any of these items if you need me to.
Okay, can I get a motion to adopt zoning text amendments, paragraph 4-2J, accessory dwelling units, and 2.9 definitions?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Well, first, given the number of people in recent months who've spoken to me about this, I have to say from both the public hearing and tonight, in terms of attendance and people who bothered to write in, I'm really disappointed that our citizenry, who many of whom seem to have opinions, have not bothered to use their voice. That being said, I'm totally in favor of the removing the conditional use permit. It makes perfect sense. And of course, I continue to be very much in favor of not allowing short-term rentals. However, this goes too far. The idea of, as Sam Jones raised, of a 60-day requirement with documentation for your own family to use it as a guest house is a significant government overreach. You know, it's not like we're subsidizing these units that are not inexpensive. So if I know that provision alone, if I was a homeowner where this was an option, would be enough that I would not invest in one. So one, I think it defeats our own purposes. We are actually taking, if we approve that, we're actually taking value away from that accessory dwelling unit. And we are shifting the onus. It's great to provide opportunity for more affordable workforce housing. As someone with 2 businesses in town, I'm well aware of that need. But this ventures into shifting the onus on solving that problem to the residents of town. So that's just, it's too much. And the definition, some of the definitions, like the definition of a kitchen, I'm sorry, is laughable. A sink. Most of our laundry rooms and pretty much almost all of our bathrooms would qualify as the definition of a kitchen under that. I agree with the rationale that in this day and age, a stove might not be a requirement, but then at least say some other kind of cooking appliance. I also have a problem with us using different definitions in our code and in this ordinance. I think that should be standardized. I really just don't get how this got here, and I'm strongly opposed.
I concur, almost exactly. The biggest thing that has stuck out to me was the family, being able to use it, and how in the world would you ever enforce that?
Yeah, and you're gonna have to
Or would
prove
you
family
actually-
members, right?
I think as a homeowner paying taxes, that is a by right to me, a thing that I should be able to do. I'm very happy to see getting rid of the,
CUP.
conditional use permit and going to the affidavit. I'm really, thank you for being able to work that in. I think that will move us into the right direction in that way. But, I understood the stretch to 30 to 60 days, but with that family piece of it, it just doesn't make it digestible.
All right, so I'll just chime in. Okay, you heard the discussion at the planning commission, and this has been the subject probably since the initiation of this accessory dwelling. But again, the purpose here was to provide an infill and not provide an extension to the house, in effect. That's what you're arguing, is I should be able to build anything on my property within the zoning square footage and what have you. And that was not the intent with coming out of the comp plan to do that. So that was why it was written with the restriction of the 30 days, and now now we're sending the message to, hey, it's 60 days so that you really understand, because again, the applicant's coming, not in all cases, but in some, or not understanding the intent of accessory dwelling. So that's the purpose that is there for.
I disagree. I think the original language, and I don't know it verbatim, but I believe it was along the lines of to provide an opportunity for additional long-term rental. It was not intended to be exclusive. I had no problem with the 60 days going back to the original use, but I do not believe the original intent, as it was expressed in the word, would rule out families staying there. I mean, how in the world would we even enforce that?
The original, even these accessory dwellings, before we even granted to go into accessory dwelling for rent, they were used for family. That was the whole, it was always done that way. The council was reluctant to change that over the years because we're worried about short-term rentals being in there. And we knew that we're gonna need more affordable housing for teachers, firefighters, police officers, whatever. That was the intent of the original trying to get this, that's why we changed it. I mean, if you wanna do a 60-day stay for anybody that's physically renting it, I'm fine with that, but restricting the homeowner from using it for his own
Yeah,
person.
and that would be my
I don't
question
agree
is,
with that.
is there an explanation why you would impose the 60-day restriction to homeowners? Was there, I mean,
No,
there must have been
it's just
discussion.
anybody who would be there. Whether the homeowner was there for 1 week, or 2 weeks, or 30 days, we just felt that 60 day, moving 30 to 60 days sent a clear message that this is for long-term rental.
Rentals, though.
Right.
That's
Yes,
the key.
That's if it's a
Well,
rental.
the personal use never really came into play as we discussed this. And it wasn't part of the discussion when it went into effect a couple of years ago.
So Katie, is it clear in this that the 60-day minimum occupancy applies to the residents of the unit as well?
As their family, yes.
And their
Yes,
family?
Yeah.
yes. I am concerned if you expand this to allow the families to actually use it as spillover or supplemental to their housing needs within their own residential. You've increased the density, potentially by every lot in town could have one of these by right, and you've increased the density, which we have not budgeted or calculated in any of your utility functions. So if that's a direction you think that's what you want to do and see happen, I would actually recommend you actually not take action this evening and you table this and refer this back to the Planning Commission. Because that's a whole new component that has not been addressed nor studied nor factored into here.
It seems to be the sense of the council as I'm hearing it, but so I guess we need to go ahead and vote on this. Or do we?
Well, we either vote on it or table it,
Do we table it?
one or the other,
Well, we've got a motion and a second.
or remand it back to the planning commission
I think
as Katie.
As presented, we vote. Because we,
Well, I mean, you can amend it. That's another choice. You could try to amend it and vote on the amendments.
You'd have to amend it when it came back.
No, you can amend it right now.
I think just, let's vote on it.
But my suggestion, my recommendation would echo the zoning administrator that we not try to either vote it down or remand it back to the commission for further work and give them further instructions.
I guess my question then is, since we have a motion and a second, do we then need to go ahead and move for the adoption and then take the vote before we remand it back if the vote turns out to be negative?
You do not, what you do is you can change or make the motion that you are going to remand this back to the planning commission if that's what you want to do, and you vote on that, and then it goes away. If you don't want to do that, then vote it up or down.
And if it votes down, what happens to it?
It dies.
It does?
But that doesn't mean you can't send it back to the planning commission.
Right, couldn't we just vote it down and send it back?
exactly.
Yeah, that,
I'm just concerned that I have a motion and a second on the floor, and I need to do something with that.
Because I would also, just to add to the comments, before we close discussion, I mean, one, I certainly don't agree that our position is that you can do anything you want. We're restricting it against short-term rentals. But the arguments on density and all, I would say that is much more significant of an issue with the number of people being piled into short-term rentals, and we're not addressing it there. In terms of occasional use by family, I think the ADUs are a far less significant issue, and I don't recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when we saw the comparison of how other jurisdictions were treating this, I saw nothing along the lines of this. This was way beyond what we've seen elsewhere.
And I believe, you know, in support of the planning commission, if they did a good job in getting it to the 60-day and focusing on long-term rental, I think it does that.
Can
But
you
I think,
speak into the
sorry,
mics? We're
but-
getting,
Yeah, but the penalty, you know, to the homeowner shouldn't be, you know, the other side of that. And I think that that's where it's unclear.
Okay, so I'm still confused with regard to whether or not we can withdraw this motion. How do we amend the motion to remand it back to,
So-
planning commission?
Someone makes the motion to remand it back, it's seconded, you vote on that, it goes back. Or you can just vote it down.
Vote it down into the
Yeah,
minute.
that's clean.
okay, I move for adoption of ordinance number 20220519, adopting text amendments to the Cape Charles zoning ordinance, section 4.2J, accessory dwelling units, and section 2.9, definitions, as noticed, and forego reading of the ordinance. Roll call vote.
Buckholz, no.
Holloway, no?
Bennett, no.
O'Brien, no.
Grossman, yes.
Fulmer, no.
So,
Make
5-1.
a motion. Come back.
So just for clarity, this is now a dead issue. Are you also, in addition to voting this down, providing any additional direction to the planning commission?
Well,
And
the
what- and what-
direction.
and
the
what is that direction?
The direction I heard was that we would like to change the 60-day minimum stay as it relates to the owner and the owner's family, guests, and I don't know.
And a reasonable definition of the
Non-renting.
kitchen.
Non-renting.
Okay, and the rest of the changes,
The definition of the kitchen.
there is consensus of agreement on the rest of the changes?
With the exception of the kitchen.
So a definition of kitchen and definition of the 60 days as it relates to the owner. If those are clarified, then you,
Make it, yeah, because I mean, there's been a lot of work done on this. It's taken a long time, and I don't want it then to come back with those changes and somebody bring up something else. So it's what the town
Well,
manager's saying.
ultimately, the planning commission will come back with something. You may not agree with it, but they will come back with something.
Yep.
okay.
I'm a little bit concerned about the parking aspect of it, because it says it'll be considered in compliance with section 4.5, using both on and off-street parking areas. Is there off-street parking available when the majority of the property is used for an accessory dwelling unit?
There
The
may or-
impact on parking.
Depends on the unit.
Yeah, but I mean, the
Some-
impact of
some
parking
people-
is,
Some people do have parking places. Some will have a garage down the road and accessory dwelling upstairs.
above.
I mean, you
Yeah,
got
an
street-
alleyway, an
yeah.
alleyway plays a big factor in that too, to be able to bring your car in.
Okay.
And whether your property has a driveway.
Yeah.
Some have and have the capability of,
So the planning commission's going to take it up again, and I suggested if there was anything else that bothers you about this between now and then, that you attend those meetings and make that known.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just, yeah, I think it's just those two big pieces.
Ready to move on?
Yeah.
So item 8B, conditional use permit after the fact for 420 Randolph Avenue for an accessory dwelling unit.
Again, we held a joint public hearing on May 3rd with Town Council and Planning Commission. We had no public comments were received on this, and we did present the staff report, and the public hearing was closed. We did have some discussion by the Planning Commission whether the property fully complies with all the ordinance requirements, including parking. I did state that there is no parking available on the lot. However, this structure was permitted to be built on this lot by the town, so the parking requirement after the fact was not being imposed, but focused only on getting the use approved at this point in time. With that said, we had a motion made by Commissioner Grossman to favorably recommend approval of the conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit after the fact at 420 Randolph on an application filed by Cynthia Emmerich and Charles Van Dyke to Town Council, and was seconded by Commissioner Holloway, and the motion was approved. I did want to make you aware, if you have any further questions, the applicants could not attend this evening due to conflicts, but they are available by phone if you have any questions for them.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit at 420 Randolph Avenue.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
I support it very much, and I think, one, I want to thank the owners, who I think have been very gracious in how they've handled this, and they have been extremely laudatory of Katie's cooperation in coming up with a win-win solution. So I think that's excellent, and only for the case of precedent would I raise, I have a real problem with us now going back to something that town approved, and they actually adjusted their design based on advice from the then town manager. And whether we agree with it or not, if the town manager and the town has approved something, I don't think this is the appropriate way to handle it, to go back and tell them it's a violation. I might not agree with something John does. I might even have an opinion that that's not in keeping with our law. But if the next town manager comes in and we say, okay, this was an okay decision that John made, no, he's the town manager. We need to stick behind the decisions that the person we put in charge of our town has made. So this all went very well, and I think everyone's satisfied, but I would really not like to see a case like this come up again, where we're basically changing the rules on them after they've made an extremely significant investment, and in my opinion, gave a great gift to town. I'm not sure they could sell this property today for everything they put into it. And they did it, I mean, out of a love for the historic structure. That building is a gift to our town. And I just don't think this is how we should be doing business, but I totally support this action item.
Any other discussion? Yes, ma'am.
If I may, I have to make a correction. That doesn't represent the record accurately. The town manager stated in his staff report to the Historic District Review Board and to the applicants, this was not to be an accessory dwelling unit. So it's not that we contradicted an approval and opposed a violation of something the town manager approved. He informed the applicant this was not to be an accessory dwelling unit at the time this was going through its permitting
Correct,
process.
and they adjusted the design in a way he told them that would keep it from being categorized as an accessory dwelling unit. He specifically said, do this, don't do this, so it won't be an ADU, which is
So
why
what is
they
it?
thought it was not an ADU.
Well, I'm not even sure the ADU.
It wasn't a
Wasn't
being.
even in
effect, so.
the thing.
It wasn't allowed at that time at
That's
all.
correct. So this
So-
discussion happened at the meeting. I was there.
Right.
Okay, the discussion happened at the meeting, and it was like, okay, I see your design, go ahead. We're still working on ADU language, and that came afterwards.
Right. So,
Okay,
and
so
I
what-
concur, we are trying not to be punitive to anyone. We are
Correct.
trying to see how we can bring things into compliance. That is how we've been approaching all violations at this point.
Any other discussion other
you've been
than
great
that,
in this
other than that
Thank you.
discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, item 8C is conditional rezoning request from Cape Charles Ventures LLC at 238 Randolph Avenue.
This is information only, so it's just provided for your information. If you have any questions, Katie can answer them.
Yes. So again, as you know, we held a joint public hearing on May 3 with the Planning Commission and Town Council. As I indicated in my staff report, we had numerous public comments on this, some in opposition, some supportive of the application. With that said, we, as a planning commission, when we closed the hearing, we continue to have further discussion, recognizing that there are some elements that they are supportive of, but we're not quite supportive of a full rezoning. So they did talk with me to ask if I could think of a creative solution. So far, no luck in that, but I'm still working on that. And so I am bringing this back to the Planning Commission at their June meeting for further conversation. So they took a vote to table ZMA 2022-01, and they directed the staff to explore if there is a way to retain this lot as residential, one zoning, but providing narrow allowance for trash and propane service, possibly as a legal non-conforming use, and that was seconded by Commissioner McCoy and was unanimously approved. So, that's it.
Do we entertain any discussion to this?
Question, maybe request. So I watched this whole meeting from home on all of these topics. I hope when it comes to us, there is, by the Planning Commission, a more serious treatment of the issue of parking of golf carts, because the language I heard was there's other options available by commission members without such a solution being proposed. I think the last thing we want is whether they're provided by the hotel or guests rent them. We don't, in our scarce parking situation, we don't need more golf carts being parked on Mason Avenue as parking, which from the outcome recommendation that came from the commission, sounded like if they did everything that they're currently doing except the golf carts, they were hoping it could be legal non-conforming. I don't think worsening the parking situation is an answer. And I was also a little troubled. There was no substantive discussion behind. The commission kept saying, we've heard everyone say they're opposed to commercial, the wording. But when you listened to what the people were saying, no one was opposing, except for one speaker on behalf of the neighbor, that sentiment the neighbor did not express. So in general, I think no one was saying that ongoing activity needs to stop. Their fear was what would come with the commercial designation. And there was no substantive discussion of that. An explanation of whether the proffers offered satisfied that condition or not. So I didn't hear anyone speaking saying, get rid of the golf carts. It was the fear of what the commercial zoning would bring. Very, actually, almost, I think, no discussion of whether the proffers address that. So I think that needs to be delved into a little more deeply by the commission. And okay, if we can address everyone's concern and use the boogeyman wording of commercial, that's not just roll out because of the word. So I would like the commission to delve a little deeper into that.
All right. Item 8D, proposed lease of town property.
So this was the subject of our public hearing tonight, and their request is to lease that portion of the boardwalk west of the shanty that we have been allowing over the last 2 years under my authority due to the pandemic because of the reduced seating in the shanty for them to expand outside. And the shanty would like to continue to use that area, but this time do it more formally through a lease. We worked out what I think is a reasonable compromise. It allows them use, but allows also a lot of flexibility. So right now, it's not being used by the public very much. It was, I think, it originally intended to be part of a network of trails, but it doesn't connect to anything yet. If it ever were to connect with something, we have a very easy out with this lease. It's only 1 year lease. It's renewable, and there's also ways to get out of it. So I think the highest and best use of that area for the public and for the town regarding revenues is to go forward with a short-term lease under these conditions. So staff recommends approval.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 20220519A, granting of a lease for town property.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think with the expansion of this, it's gonna bring a lot more revenue from the meals tax. We just do a lease of $1. I think he's been more than generous with the amount of money that he ends up paying at the end of the year. You know, the percentage plus the amount of taxes he's collecting. It's in our best interest. I mean, if we just did $1 lease for a year, I think that would be, I mean, he's done a tremendous amount for this town, so just $100 for that is just too much for me.
I'm assuming this has been discussed with him and he's agreeable to the $100?
Yes, and the owner's here, and he'll answer questions for you.
Saw you back there.
Let him back there.
The price was extrapolated from the original lease terms. And it's,
Is it okay, can I speak?
yes, come up here to speak.
So,
please.
I'm sorry.
Come this way, you have to get to the microphone, John. Sorry.
No, what, are you getting old?
And then hop over the wire.
Be careful.
I'm the knucklehead who works 60, 70 hours a week and still decides to go help my friend go crabbing yesterday and threw his back out. So yeah, oh, dude, this thing's on wheels. How about that? Oh yeah, so I mean, the $100. If you want it, if you make a motion to make it $1, that's terrific. We'd appreciate it, but it's not. I mean, our $500 base rent right now is still, very reasonable. Our rent that we pay to the town really is in the lease, which would combine with this is the 1% of the meals tax or 1% of revenue, right? So I mean, I cut a check, for $3,200 this month for rent plus the $500. If it's $500 or $600. You're making the money really on the meals tax. That's where it is. So the additional space for us is additional revenue, which is additional rent. The base on it, honestly, is pretty negligible. Whether it's $100 or $1, it's not a huge deal to me.
And if I could add too, not to sound cheap on the town's part, but remember, this is an enterprise fund, and during our recent budget hearings, the harbor fund, and this $100 goes to the harbor fund, and we need every dollar we can get going into the harbor fund. So I'm just.
I mean, honestly, and Andy, I appreciate the notion, but I'm happy to pay the $100. $1,200 a year is not going to make or break this deal for me. You know what I mean? Or it's fine. But I will say this. I mean, I would say in support of this proposal for the lease, the only reason that the Shaney never really had that property from day one, we're going on year 10, June 1st. And I stood here 11 years ago or 10 and a half years ago and argued for this lease. And the only reason we didn't have that was that boardwalk was supposed to be part of this comprehensive trail plan that was going to connect the northern end of the beach all the way over to the gazebo at the southern end of the town harbor at the time, before the floating docks were even put in. And in my opinion, and I'm not trying to tell you guys what to do, but in my opinion, if we get the comprehensive trail plan going and that happens, we can renew this on a yearly basis, no problem. I would ask that we review it in the winter, so that just for our budgeting purposes, that we could say, hey, if you want to do this on a year-to-year basis, no problem. But can we do it in January rather than doing it the week before Memorial Day weekend? So I know going into the season, hey, we're losing this year, and I know that in January, not in May 12th or May 19th. You know what I mean? And it's not this case. Obviously, this year is different because we've had this the last few years because of COVID. But I will tell you, we never honestly even considered using that space until COVID. And when COVID hit and all of the spatial distancing and 6 feet apart, and we really tried to go above and beyond, and the town was very generous, and John said we could use the boardwalk. When we put the tables out there, we realized, wow, this is really pretty cool. And when you're sitting there,
Nice space.
it's a really nice space. When you're sitting there, it's an interesting thing about the water is, you want to be as close to it as you can be. And the difference, that boardwalk's only 12 feet wide. And that 12 feet doesn't seem like much. But when you sit at a table at the railing, looking down at the water, compared to inside the pavers at the Shanty, looking out at the water, I can tell you personally, sitting there with my family and my kids, and, it is a tremendous difference. It's a tremendous different feeling. And so we really enjoyed it. People really enjoyed it. And we're like, man, this would be terrific. Because I can also tell you, 10 years of being on that property on an almost daily basis, that conservatively speaking, I would say 95% of people walk the front of the building. When they come across the railroad property and come up the Shell path, 95% of people go to the left. 5% of people maybe take a right and go down that boardwalk. So I certainly wouldn't want to put the town in a position where we're taking away a transitive situation, but at the same time, I can tell you, nobody really uses it. And I can tell you that because I'm there every day. The tricky part about this is, and I will just, in 100% transparency, for ABC purposes, we are required to have a gated perimeter on any ABC area. So, you know, we would have to put a gate up at one end of the boardwalk and at the other. What I would recommend and what I want to do is to put one up if you can picture, imagine if you were to come from town and take a right down the boardwalk, to put a gate at the turn or maybe right at the front, and I'm pretty just to leave it open, right? We're totally fine with people coming through there, that's fine. What I'm certainly gonna post signs, for Chief's satisfaction and for my own, that are like no alcohol beyond this point on the inside of those gates, and we'll leave the gate open. If people want to walk through there with their dogs, if people want to ride a bike through there, no problem. There's plenty of room there for that to happen. But it's a really nice space that we would love to use. I think will generate a lot more revenue for the restaurant, which in turn will generate a lot more revenue for town. And I've also, you know, made an offer to take over all the improvements of that area. So if there's a board missing, we'll fix it. You guys don't have to worry about it, at least on that section. The rest of the harbor is your problem. You know, and I think that we would like to put in, when I initially spoke with Mr. Hosey and Mr. Dyes, feels weird calling him that, it's when I spoke to Smitty, you know, we'd like to put some fish lights in the harbor so that, I think it'd be a real attraction, you know? I've been to a place down in Puerto Rico where you go to the bar and you look out and you see all the tarpon and all the fish and stuff. You know, people could go out and hang out there at night and have a beer and sit on the railing and look down and see all the fish in the harbor. It'd be really cool. It's another attraction for town. It's another revenue generator. It's another source of tax income. You know, the $100 or the dollar really is pretty negligible either way, as far as even I'm concerned. You know, I mean, I'll suck an Andy right now, but at the same time, you know, I'd be totally fine at $100 because the money coming in on the revenue is really where it's at. And it's also, I really do believe it's going to be a better attraction. And if the comprehensive plan ever comes to fruition, terrific. We can look at it every January. But I just personally, with what's happened to the Tavi, that comprehensive plan is now how many years old, and what's happened to the Tavi property, God knows what's happening at the railroad. You guys probably know a lot more than I do. The idea of that thing happening anytime in the next 2 or 5 or 10 years, in my opinion, is ethereal. So, you know, we'd love to be able to utilize it.
All right,
I just had a question on the 1%. You're just rolling that into the other 1%. You
Correct.
don't have a 1% just for this section of your restaurant.
No, we pay you 1% of our revenue
That's the current
every
rate.
single month.
And this is just gonna roll into that 1%?
Yeah, so if I do an extra 20 or 30 grand a month on having that section, you'll get 1% of that too.
Right. No, I understand.
Whatever the revenue is, I mean, we're not going to separate, we don't separate sales based on dining areas.
That's my question.
Yep.
Councilman Colmore, did you have your hand up? No comment on this?
Chief, you got anything back there? You got any concern on this? I don't know.
All right,
Okay.
anybody else have any other thing they want to discuss? All right, so I move for adoption of ordinance 20220519A, granting lease of town property as noticed, and forgo reading of the ordinance. Roll call vote.
Buckles, yes.
Holloway, yes.
Bennett, yes.
O'Brien, yes.
Grossman, yes?
Fulmer, yes.
Thank you all. It says,
Congratulations on 10 years around the corner.
yeah.
We share that.
I'm not going to kid you. I got out of the shower this morning. My sister put up a picture yesterday, not to take up your time, but my sister put up a picture yesterday of me on Facebook of me sitting in front of the Shanty 10 years ago, and I'm about 40 pounds lighter and look a lot more young. And then when I was getting dressed this morning, I was getting ready. I was like, God damn, I got a lot of gray hair, you know? But hey, real quick, so the lease as it reads begins June 1st. Is there a way, I don't know how you guys operate, like specifically, is there a way to make it, like I know where it's annual, is there a way to make it where we renew it in January or February so that I can budget?
Yeah, so we can renew it in January to take effect in June.
That would be fine.
So we could just make that part of the process every year.
And last question, not to go too far and beyond, but next weekend's Memorial Day weekend, and technically the lease doesn't begin until June 1st. I don't know when the COVID stuff runs out. Is it possible for us to
How about
use
June
it?
1st?
Huh?
COVID thing runs out June 1st.
There you go.
So I can use it for Memorial Day weekend. Thank you all.
All right.
Get your back well, by
Yeah.
you'll need it.
It's already got more spring in this stuff.
Can you guys approve a historic district sign for Dead Rise? See you later. You need a shady picture on that wall though too. I'll tell you, I'll look around and see good pictures.
Bear with me. A rogue Siri going here. Okay, item 8E, which is adoption of the 2021 Eastern Shore, Virginia Hazard Mitigation Plan. Got Jeb's name on it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, this is a fairly straightforward item that we participate in a shorewide plan that the ANPDC helps put together that goes to Virginia Department of Emergency Management and FEMA for approval. And it's just been gone through an update. We've looked at it, Jeb's looked at it, and everything looks fine. We just, all the participating localities need to adopt it before July 1st. If we don't, then, if there's a problem and FEMA may not support, certain claims or whatever. But it's pretty straightforward, and staff recommends approval.
Okay, can I get a motion to adopt the Eastern Shore Hazard Mitigation Plan by approval of Resolution 20220519 with a roll call vote?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
To adopt.
Any discussion?
It's impressive.
Yeah, it's long, yeah.
I mean, the work that went into that is incredible.
Okay, I move for adoption of Resolution 20220519, Eastern Shore, Virginia Hazard Mitigation Plan 2021, Town of Cape Charles, Virginia, as noticed, and forgo reading of the ordinance. Roll call vote.
Buckles, yes.
Holloway, yes.
Bennett, yes.
O'Brien, yes.
Grossman, yes.
Fulmer, yes.
Thank you. Item 8F is the ARPA expenditure for police car.
So as you recall, during our recent work sessions on the budget, I requested, when we talked about ARPA funding, that we fund a police car from the current fiscal year under the current budget. That was not included in the prior budget. Although all the ARPA money was appropriated, you did appropriate all the money, it was not designated. So I am requesting now for you to get a formal authorization from you to spend up to $42,000 on a police car this fiscal year.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed? Item 8G is public hearing procedures.
So this was requested by the mayor that we bring this forward after speaking to a number of you, apparently following the recent joint hearing with the Planning Commission. It became obvious that this is one thing we didn't address last summer. We did a comprehensive review of a lot of our procedures on how the public participates, how we conduct our meetings, code of ethics, all of that. And the one thing that we inadvertently left off was public hearing procedures. Based on an outline that the mayor provided, I completed the items here, ran them by the clerk, and essentially what this does is refocus the procedure on the public. It's a public hearing. It's not a time for the deliberative body to engage. That comes later during their regular meeting. This would allow that to happen. The only thing that is really added that's kind of new that we never really have done before is that once the hearing is called to order, the responsible staff person will give a briefing, not to the body, but to the public, of what is the hearing, so they know what it is they're commenting on. At that time, the body does not engage in questions or debate. It's just for the benefit of the public. So I think that was a good add to make sure the public understands what's going on, and then public testimony is taken, then written testimony is taken, close the hearing, then the deliberative body deals with the issue. So if this is affirmatively approved tonight, then I would request that this be published as an addendum to the meeting rules of order that you approved last summer.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we adopt these public hearing procedures as outlined in the staff report.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, a question with regards to the staff presentation there. How detailed do you expect a staff presentation to the public? Since this is already information that's posted, I'm not saying not to do it, but information is posted certainly for us, and we've reviewed it ahead of time, and it's posted on our website for anybody to pull it up as an agenda item.
I would say that would be situationally dependent on the topic and the level of complexity and the level of public interest. So that's why I didn't want to go into detail. Are you going to read the staff report verbatim? Probably not. Would you summarize it? But then sometimes if it's really detailed, you might want to read the staff report verbatim. So I would leave that. I left it purposely vague. Leave it to the staff liaison to determine what level of information is required.
One issue that I think is not addressed here that I think should be just to ensure conformity is, at least as I remember, the previous hearings, we've always, once the list has been exhausted, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, we've said, okay, is there anyone who didn't sign up? Like maybe who walked in after we took the list. And my recollection is we've always allowed that. And at the last planning commission meeting, someone walked in and the chair said no to that.
Right.
Now, I'm not arguing for one way of handling it or the other. I just think the procedure should be codified so that citizens can expect standardized treatment. And I guess since I was 3 minutes late tonight, maybe we should give the people the extra chance because they're not going to get another chance to speak on it. But I just think one way or the other it needs to be spelled out.
That's a good point. You're absolutely right. Traditionally, it has always been left to the discretion of the chair. The chair has always been able to make that call. And so, yes, it isn't consistent because it depends on the chair. Sometimes they allow it, sometimes they don't. It depends on the situation. So I guess the way it's currently written, you wouldn't allow them to do it. This invites people who signed up in advance. You read it into the record, you move on. So if you want that added step added, that the chair would invite anybody who showed up after the open, I guess we would add that step in.
But it has to be a limit to when they,
Are they bound by the 3-minute rule?
No,
no,
oh,
not-
yeah,
not
that's not what
length
we're
of
talking
time,
about.
But I mean, somebody can't come in at the end of the public hearing and say, oh,
But
Once it's adjourned.
as the list is brought forth for the people, at that time can be asked, is there anyone in the room that hasn't signed the list?
Yeah. Before we move on to email, once we move on, it's closed.
So I think maybe a compromise position, and I've spoken to Libby about this, we both kind of agree. Not everyone understands that they need to sign up. There's a public hearing, you assume you're going to be able to speak at a public hearing. They come in, they sit down, they don't realize they got to sign up. Or they sign up on the wrong list. So I think maybe we could add a clarifying statement that before the first person speaks, that the presiding officer
Yeah,
announced to everyone there, did everybody sign up? That wants to speak. If not, then go talk to the clerk. And so if someone came in and didn't realize they had to sign up, they would do that. And I think, and then that becomes consistent. And then, but you could, if someone walks in after that, then they're out of luck.
so do we need to amend the motion to include that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I would make a motion to amend it for that.
Can I get an amendment to the motion?
I move that we amend the motion to read as John said.
I'll second that amendment
Is there
motion.
any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
I just-
so,
amendment motion.
She's obsessive.
it is, it's ridiculous. Okay, so it's now time for town manager comments. Mr. Hosey?
Not a lot tonight. Our working group for the comp plan had a meeting today with our consultant to kind of get up to speed on getting that project moving forward again. If you recall, during your last joint work session with the planning commission and the consultant, we talked about a timeline, and you had given some indication that you really didn't want to engage the public too much during the height of the tourist season. You thought that we didn't get as good a participation. So we're not in a huge rush, but we're at the point now where the project group is kind of gone as far as we can, and now we need to meet again one more time in a joint work session with the council and the planning commission for you to review the draft and give us your input. But then we can incorporate that over the summer and have a public participation in September-ish timeframe. So we were looking at late June timeframe, but there was only a couple of dates that worked with the consultant. So what I would like to do, I'm going to ask the clerk to do a doodle poll for all of you with all the dates in there, and you select the ones that you're available for, and we'll see which ones, work the best. But I just wanted to make sure you all understand how to use a doodle poll, because sometimes it only shows 1 week at a time. So when you pull it up, sometimes if you can't just click what's there, you have to click the arrow for the following week too, okay? Yeah, so that's why,
That was when Liddy came back and said, Andrew, Andy, and Tammy, please respond.
Yeah,
so,
we might need written instructions for
so,
some.
so just so I,
You thought you did.
so that will, the clerk will be putting that out tomorrow, and so I just wanted to, so if you need any extra training on Doodle, let us know, but please let us know what your availability is
Hold the laughter down,
for
please.
those
We're
dates.
trying to conduct a meeting here.
And that's really it. I just wanted to thank all of you for all your time reviewing and participating in the budget process. It's always a complicated effort. I was hoping to put together a summary this week, and the week got away from me. I was out the first couple of days of the week, but I'll do it next week and run it by the mayor, and just so the public knows, what we talked about and where we're going, and then they'll get all the information out, the hard documents out in plenty of time for the public hearing on the 9th. So that's all I have.
Thank you. So mayor and council comments, Buckholz,
I have nothing tonight.
Holloway.
I have just a couple of things. Main Street submitted 8 grants to Northampton County for the Northampton County infrastructure grants. I can't make that public yet, but I can say that you will be very excited by some of the money that we got, and it will help our budget overall, which is good, and I'll share that as soon as I can. The porta potty units I talked about last time that are going to be added throughout town. We actually have Eastern Shore of Virginia Tourism paying for those for the summer, for 5 months. Cleaning, the twice a week cleaning from them. Our staff will still, have to do that, but it's really great that we got that support from them and the understanding that need. And then, might be on Mr. Grossman's list, but on next Tuesday is the county meeting on assessments, and I encourage people to go or submit a comment to be read into the record. Paul, is it correct that I see it at 5 o'clock? Is that true, do you think?
That's what I saw today, too.
It could be as early as 5, yes.
Okay, so. just-
Normally, they have a closed session at that time, so you gotta be careful. Closed session, and then they open it up typically at 6, but
That's
they
what I thought,
may have
yeah.
it different.
Yeah, online it said 5
5
today
on
when I
five.
looked, yeah.
So anybody that wants to express their views on the assessment should plan on either submitting something in advance or be there to read it into the record.
So this is just a general, it's not,
It's the budget, it's the meeting specifically, public meeting for the,
Yeah, their tax equalization, they equalize it, the assessment's going up. It went up to 1%, but they added on top of that 1%. And that's one of the public meetings requirements then, to bring it out. And you're gonna get District 1 is gonna really,
And they added 8% on top of it?
ultimately it was 3%, I think it was.
so I just wanted for those listening online this is your time for your voice if you haven't submitted it already.
Yeah, and this is pointed, Smitty wasn't here because he and I had talked about perhaps something coming from the town also to the county. So I'll leave it up to Smitty.
I've spoken to the mayor about that, and yeah, I'll work with him on coming up with something. We had some other ideas that gets the same message across, but
Whatever.
I think if we're able as council, we should be there to support our community and our concerns if you're able.
Anything else? Councilwoman O'Brien?
I don't know if this falls under the town or, not. Who's responsible for our streetlights?
ANAC.
Okay, you've heard, you know where I'm going with this.
I probably. We get complaints all the time.
The new
Well, we
light
have-
bulbs?
you can't, the average citizen can't contact them directly. They'll send you to the town, but then the town turns around and contacts them.
Right.
So Public Works is the liaison. They to the power company, but we're not responsible for it. We just channel everything through them. So if
If
there's,
someone has an issue, they should come report concern.
yeah, they should do a report of concern, and then I'll get it to Public Works, and then they'll put it on the list.
It's the illumination from the new lights.
I know that,
Quite illuminating.
and we get conflicting reports on that. We've at sometimes been told that you can turn them down, and then other times we're told you
Right.
can't. Sometimes we're told you can put shades around them, and sometimes we're told you can't.
A dimmer switch would be great,
Yeah, no.
a dimmer switch.
So we keep getting conflicting information from them when we push back, and sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. I mean, one resident just wants this one turned off.
Are there specific lights you're referring to?
Well, it's the streetlights in the historic district. I have one that's right outside of the front of my house, and so I have blackout curtains. When you open that curtain at night, the whole room lights up. And it's a new bulb that they've put in, and they're much brighter. I hadn't really thought much about it, and then I started noticing the houses
Yeah,
that have
nice
these in
new
front.
LED white.
Yeah, yeah, it's bright.
Yeah, I just know from other places I've worked that there's more than one light, not just wattage, but color. I mean, you can pick, a warm light or a
Yeah.
cold light, whether it
Yeah.
has more yellow color,
No,
more
if
white
you're-
color.
no, if
Right.
You know, it makes a world of difference if it's a warmer colored light.
So the direction is to report a concern?
Yes,
And then,
and then we'll direct it to them, and we'll try to corral them as best we can. Again, we don't have any direct control over it, but
Right.
we can keep after them.
But there's a number of people that report the concern on a specific area that's more likely than
they'll get the attention.
to get the
Right,
Yeah.
okay. That's all I have.
Councilman Grossman?
A couple items. Just, again, thank you to Jeb for the hazard mitigation plan. John, if you could assign him to the comp plan. The housing forum, you saw the article in the Eastern Shore Post. Can't say overly successful. It got attention, it got some developers. It got people to review some of the areas within Accomack and Northampton that perhaps could foster affordable housing. So now the group is taking and discussing actions needed coming out of the forum, and that you'll hear more about. The last thing I had was a work session next Thursday.
Next
is
Thursday.
Dealing with utilities, and we'll have more of an open discussion. I've sent John my material this afternoon, and again, it's a culling of information from the SEC filings that I think, for an awareness point of view, the council should be at. Not that it's gonna sway you one way or the other, but my intent is to have you more informed on what we're entering here.
And our consultant will be here.
More information is better. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
Councilman Palmer?
Just a general observation, because since I live and work on Mason, a lot of people give me their feedback, and I honestly think since last month's meeting, I've only received positive feedback on our staff. Thank you to Public Works, I guess, for getting the silver bullet fully repaired and back and functional, and I've actually heard users talking to themselves about it being a nicer facility than they expected. But, Jeb, Katie, even the police, not the people who've been getting tickets, but otherwise, no, just generally very positive feedback on our staff, and particularly on helpfulness, attitude, not just doing something. I mean, when people that Katie's talking to about enforcement issues, are complimentary. I'm like, okay, she's, I'm not used to that. People generally don't like being on the other end, and everyone I've spoken with lately has appreciated the helpfulness, though.
And really professionalism.
Yes,
you know?
yes, but really across to all staff, so I just want to recognize that.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, because in the current climate we're in, there seems to be a lot of negativity, and it's nice to hear positive thoughts.
A lot of those are people who don't live in town.
So thanks for that. I don't have any additional comments, but I do have announcements to read. So May 26th is a town council work session, 6:30 PM. May 30th, the town offices are closed for the Memorial Day holiday. June 9th is a town council public hearing at 6:30 PM. This is tentative,
No, it's not tentative anymore, sorry. That's the budget public hearing.
okay? It's no longer tentative, it is in fact. June 16th is town council regular meeting at 6:30 PM. June 20th, the town offices are closed for Juneteenth, which is a state holiday. And May 26th is another same town council work session.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I forgot to.
Got in there second. So with all of that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, yes,
One
ma'am.
announcement,
You-
I'm sorry. On June 5th, the Eastern Shore Master Gardeners are having a garden tour in Cape Charles. So it's from 12 to 4.
How's that being publicized?
They don't, they're getting some stuff out, but it's not been great. That's why I wanted to know that.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Then we are actually on the tour this year, so. If you see me in my garden, Jim and I are garden every single day until then, you'll know about it.
All right. So if there's nothing else now, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.